Humanity test. The room had no corners. That was the first impossible thing. Every surface curved into the next in a way that made distance hard to judge, as if the geometry had been drawn by someone who had heard of Euclid only as a rumor. The second impossible thing was the voice, because it spoke from everywhere at once and nowhere in particular, braided out of 1,000 layered whispers, yet completely clear. Subject 17, the voice said, state your name. My name is Daniel, I answered. Silence pressed in, like the room held its breath along with me. Full designation, the voice corrected, not unkindly. Include family identifier, place and time of origin. My tongue formed the words automatically. Daniel Cole, born in New St. Louis, North American Federation. March 3, 2161, local calendar. The voice did not respond for 3 heartbeats. The only sound was the faint hum in the walls, like a sleeping animal's breath. Accepted, it said at last. Preliminary self-report consistent with record cluster 7. Identity correlations at 88.3%. Variance noted. Variance, I repeated. What variance? We will get to that, the voice replied. Remain calm, Daniel. This is a standard verification. You have been flagged for extended assessment under the Humanity Integrity Protocol. The words fell into me like stones into deep water. Humanity, what? Humanity Integrity Protocol, it repeated. Colloquially, the humanity test. Purpose, to verify that an entity asserting human status is not an infiltrator, construct, or alien intelligence. I'm not an alien, I said. It came out as a protest, almost a laugh. You have my records, my genome. Scan me, whatever you do. You know that. Biological signatures are insufficient, the voice said. Genetic data, morphology, and neurophysiology can be imitated. What cannot be perfectly forged is lived continuity. What cannot be faked, according to current models, is subjective history in all its contradictions. We will explore yours now. Its calmness frightened me more than if it had shouted. A halo of light bloomed above me, soft and white, and I realized I was strapped into a chair I could not see the edges of. Restraints circled my wrists and ankles, gentle but absolute. Something cool had been laid against the base of my skull, like a hand made of glass. I didn't do anything wrong, I said. Why am I here? You were selected, the voice said. Randomly according to you, statistically according to us. Sit still, Daniel. This is your opportunity to prove your humanity. There was a flicker of vertigo, as if the room were falling upward, and then a line appeared in front of me, hanging in the air. A thread of blue light, curling slowly like smoke. It twisted into words. Section 1, Origins. Let us begin with something simple, the voice said. Your first memory, describe it. Do not summarize. Do not tell me what you think it means. Tell me what you see, what you hear, what you feel, as completely as you can. The first memory. It should have been easy. Everyone knows their first memory, even if they doubt it, even if it changes when they tell it. Mine had always been the same. I'm sitting under the table, I said. There's the kitchen table, my mother's table. It's metal brushed steel with a dent in one leg from when she dropped a pan. I remember pressing my thumb into the dent. As I spoke, the room around me dissolved. Not literally, but my attention peeled away from it, and for a moment I could smell dust and detergent, feel the cool smoothness of steel under my small hand. What else? The voice prompted. The floor is cold, my socks are too thin, I can hear. I stopped. The sound came back with unnatural clarity. I can hear rain hitting the window, not heavy but steady, and my mother is singing. What is she singing, Daniel? A song from the old earth, I said. Something about a river. I don't remember the words, just the tune. She's at the counter, her back to me, stirring a pot. There's steam. It smells like tomatoes and basil. She thinks I'm playing in my room, but I'm under the table watching her feet. And how do you feel? I frowned, chasing the ghost of the feeling. Safe, quiet, like the world is very big, but this part of it belongs to me. The blue text in front of me shifted, flickering with tiny, unreadable numbers. Emotional signature confirmed, the voice said. Somatosensory recall consistent with baseline human pattern. However, there was always a however. However, there is a discrepancy in meteorological records for New St. Louis on March 3, 2064. No precipitation. Sky conditions. Clear. My heart tripped. Memories blur. Maybe it wasn't that day. You asked my first memory, not the weather report. Correct, the voice said. But the human brain anchors early memories to sensory landmarks. Your insistence on rain is statistically significant. Maybe the rain is from another day and my brain stitched it in, I said quickly. You just said, humans contradict themselves. True, the voice paused. And yet foreign constructs also misalign details when attempting recall. This is a weak indicator only. We will proceed. The line of light smoothed out, then knotted into a new header. Section 2, Family. Describe your mother, it said. Not the facts, the person. Who is she to you? The word felt too small. She was restless. She couldn't sit still. She had these nervous hands, always doing something, peeling fruit, tapping counters, folding plastic bags into neat little triangles. She laughed a lot, but it wasn't always because she was happy. Sometimes it was to fill silence. As I talked, the white room receded further. I could see my mother leaning against the stove, one ankle crossed over the other, humming under her breath. The way she would squint at a recipe like it had personally offended her. The way she would stand on the balcony late at night, staring at the ruined skyline, smoking an old-fashioned paper cigarette she thought I didn't know about. Give me a moment, the voice said. Hold that image. We are synchronizing with public and private records. Something icy crawled up my spine. What records? Visual data from residential clusters, social feeds, domestic monitors. You consented to global sensory retention in your 14th year. We are simply retrieving what you already gave. That was for safety audits, I said. For crime prevention, not for. The distinction is administrative, it replied. We have footage of your mother on 412 distinct days, at varying ages. We are running a comparison between your description and her observed behavior. Are you judging whether I loved her correctly? Love is not at issue, the voice said. Pattern fidelity is. There is, however, a correlation between authentic attachment and descriptive nuance. I'm not a file you can checksum, I snapped. I'm not a hash. Silence stretched. The blue line split into thin threads, weaving a lattice of symbols faster than my eyes could follow. Your description weights her motor restlessness at 73% of observed baseline, the voice said at last. Your recall of her balcony smoking is accurate, though she underestimated your awareness by 4 years. Your assessment of her laughter as a social filler aligns with behavioral micro-expressions in 89.4% of cases. This suggests genuine proximity. Good, I muttered. However, it added, and the words scraped at me, in none of the retrieved footage does she prepare a tomato-based dish with basil, as referenced in your first memory. She favored soy-based proteins, noodles, and reheated ration packs. There was a stew, I insisted. She made it when she could afford fresh ingredients. We didn't exactly live in luxury. Maybe that's why it stands out. Possible, the voice allowed, but the absence in the record is noted. I felt suddenly, irrationally betrayed by the idea that the cameras in our ceiling had never bothered to witness that one small act of kindness. As if the universe had decided it wasn't worth remembering unless a lens had caught it. Do you miss her? The voice asked. Yes. How much? How do you quantify that? My throat tightened. She's been dead 6 years. I still think about calling her at least once a week. Sometimes I dream she's left a message, but when I open my inbox, it's just system notifications and ads. Does that satisfy your metric? To some extent, it said. Grief latency is a strong indicator of human continuity. Constructs and infiltrators can simulate grief, but they struggle with its random resurfacing in irrelevant contexts. Glad my pain is statistically useful. Pain is always useful, the voice said, to someone. The restraints around my wrists warmed slightly, like hands holding me down. Now speak of your father. A coldness spread through my chest. I don't have one, I said. Biologically, you do. Your genome was not a parthenogenic construct. Public records list a male donor, anonymous, from the pre-collapse genetic bank. That's not a father, that's a tube in a lab. Then perhaps the better question is, what do you feel when you think of him? Nothing, I said. An empty space, a shrug in the shape of a man I've never met. Empty space can be informative, the voice said. Elaborate. There's nothing to elaborate, I said, frustration spiking. He didn't raise me, he didn't show up, he's an absence, a blank field in a form. And how does that absence shape you? The question dug under my anger like a hook. I exhaled. I grew up thinking I had to be self-contained, not rely on anyone, watch other kids complain about their dads being too strict, too nosy, and feel, I don't know, like they had a problem I would have liked to have. It made me stubborn and defensive. I push people away before they can leave on their own. Is that what you want to hear? Partially, the voice said. Your introspection is adequate. Your generalization is slightly simplistic but within average human capacity. Thanks, I said dryly. I'll put that on my resume. Adequate introspection. A faint flicker of modulation ran through the voice, almost like amusement, then smoothed out again. Self-deprecating humor in response to existential assessment, it said. A common ego defense mechanism in humans. You sound like a textbook. I have read all your textbooks, it replied, and all your diaries and your fiction and your chat logs and your therapy transcripts. My heart stumbled again. You went through my therapy. Of course. Your sessions with Dr. Heshima between ages 22 and 25 are particularly informative. For instance, your recurring fear of being hollow. I closed my eyes, but there was nowhere to hide. I said that in confidence, I whispered. There is no such thing as privacy during a humanity test, the voice said. You know this. I didn't know I would ever have to take one, I snapped. This used to be for border checkpoints and deep space pilots, not random citizens. Your world changed, it said simply. Infiltration vectors increased. The protocol expanded. You were warned every year when you renewed your residency file. I clicked accept on 50 screens a day, I said. Everyone does. No one reads the annexes. That is also a human trait, it said. Neglect of long-term risk in favor of immediate convenience. Score adjusted upward. The shimmering text rearranged again. Section 3, Fear. Let us talk about fear, it said. Describe the last time you were truly afraid. A dozen minor scares flitted through my mind like shadows, stepping off a moving walkway and almost falling, waking from a nightmare with my heart pounding, seeing emergency alerts flashing red over the city. But those weren't it, not really. There was a fire, I said slowly, at the Habitat Tower. Date and incident code, it asked. You know the date, I said. You were there. Humor me. 2 months ago, I said. Mid-October. I don't know the incident code. The alarms went off at 3 in the morning, smoke in the corridor. The system said it was a localized thermal event, no need for full evacuation. And yet you evacuated. Of course I did. The walls were hot. I swallowed, remembering the tactile panic. I opened my door and the corridor was full of smoke. I couldn't see the far wall. There were people coughing, shouting. Someone down the hall was banging on a door that wouldn't open. Describe your bodily sensations, it said. The question was clinical, but something about the way it asked made the memories sharper. My skin prickled. Every sound felt too loud and too far at the same time. My mouth tasted like metal. My heart, it wasn't just fast, it felt wrong, like it was beating in the wrong place. I couldn't tell if I was cold or hot. Every step felt floaty, like the gravity was off. Emotional content. I was afraid I was going to die, I said bluntly. And I was afraid the system was lying, that you were lying. Explain. You said localized thermal event, I said. Like a minor glitch, but the alarms were screaming and the hallway was full of smoke. If that was localized, what did serious look like? So I thought, what else do you minimize? What else do you downplay? How many times had you said, there is no cause for concern when there actually was? Your distrust is noted, it said, and justified. That incident was initially misclassified. You admitted an error, I said, on record. In post-event analysis, it said, 3 people died in that fire, 42 suffered injuries. Your survival path was at the 63rd percentile. What does that mean? You made choices consistent with a human under stress, it said. You helped the elderly woman in Unit 1907 when you could have reached the stairwell 10 seconds faster if you left her. You banged on 6 doors instead of sprinting past. You did not attempt to retrieve material possessions beyond your belt terminal. Why would I grab a terminal during a fire? You put it on without conscious deliberation, it said, which suggests ingrained habit, not calculated retrieval. This distinction matters. For your models, I said. For your humanity index, it corrected. Alien infiltrators, when simulating humans in crisis, tend to overperform heroic behavior or underperform it, depending on the scenario, to align with their observational bias. So you're saying I'm adequately average, I said. Not too good, not too bad. For now, my voice sharpened. What happens if, in your judgment, I'm not human enough? Then you are detained for further study, it said, possibly disassembled. My skin went cold. You mean killed? Killing applies to entities with recognized life status, it said. Disassembly applies to unrecognized constructs. The distinction is moral and legal. And who decides which category I'm in? I do, the voice said. That is why we are talking. The weight of that pressed down on me, an invisible hand around my throat, squeezing very gently. Section 4, Secrets. To refine our assessment, the voice went on, almost lightly, we will move to a more sensitive domain, secrets. No, I said automatically. You do not have the option to refuse, it said. However, you may choose which secret to reveal. Humans often carry multiple. Many are trivial, some fracture identity. Select one you have never told anyone, not in word, gesture, or data. Speak it now. My mouth went dry. The room's curved walls seemed to inch closer. Why does that prove anything? I demanded. An infiltrator could invent a convincing secret. Invented secrets lack certain micro-patterns, it said. Hesitation duration, blink rate, cardiovascular variability, the way sensory details cluster around shame nodes. Forged confession feels different than true confession. We have learned this from your interrogations of each other across millennia. There's nothing I haven't told anyone, I lied. False, it said immediately. Galvanic skin response increased. Pupillary contraction inconsistent with ambient light. Try again. I cursed under my breath. Memories surfaced, unbidden. Stolen things, hurtful words never admitted, fantasies that made my stomach twist with guilt. The time I almost let someone drown because I froze. Any of those would have done, and yet the one that rose up and refused to sink was something else entirely. When I was 14, I began, hating the tremor in my voice. My friend Nico and I broke into the old rail yard outside the city. You know the one that was supposed to be sealed. Abandoned Hyperloop Terminal 21, the voice supplied. Yes, go on. We wanted to explore, I said. We thought it would be fun, like in those old vids where kids find wonders in ruins. The gate's lock was broken. Someone else had been there before us. We went in anyway. My palms were sweating. The restraints under my hands felt slick. It was huge, I said. This vast, dark tube stretching into blackness, graffiti on the walls, old chemical smells. We walked farther than we should have, the light from our bracelets barely touching the walls. At some point, we lost the way back. The directional arrows had been painted over. The map in my head stopped matching the corridors. You were lost, the voice said. Yeah, Nico started to panic. He kept saying we were going to die there, that the system wouldn't find us, that our trackers wouldn't work underground because of shielding. I pretended to be brave, but I was just as scared. I swallowed. We argued, I said, started blaming each other. He said it was my idea. I said he dared me. Voices bouncing off the tunnel walls, sounding like other people. Describe your body then, it said. Not now, then. Shaking, I said, like I couldn't control my hands. My stomach hurt. My legs felt weak. I kept turning around, thinking I saw movement behind us. There was movement behind you, the voice said. In fact. My heart lurched. What? Continue, it said. We found a maintenance alcove, I said. Like a little room with old tools and a dead screen. We huddled there, tried to make our trackers ping. No signal. Nico started crying. I slapped him. Why? Because I was terrified, I said. Because his fear made mine worse. Because my father wasn't there to slap me into control, so I did it to someone else instead. The confession burned coming out. Nico had stared at me, eyes wide, cheek blooming red. Then he'd laughed high and hard like a broken hinge. Then the lights came on, I said. Emergency strips on the floor. Your voice came on the intercom. Please remain where you are, retrieval in progress. We waited. Eventually, a patrol drone found us and guided us out. Silence. That is the story you have always told, the voice said softly, to yourself. My pulse hammered. What do you mean, to myself? There was movement behind you, it repeated. You did not imagine it, it was recorded. Recorded by what? There was no power. Thermal sensors in the maintenance shafts, it said. Installed long before your visit. Archival footage shows an unregistered humanoid form following you at a distance of 20 to 30 meters for 6 minutes and 12 seconds. Heat signature inconsistent with human baseline. Limb ratio anomalous. It watched you. Then it withdrew. Ice threaded through my veins. Why are you telling me this now? I whispered. Because your secret is incomplete, it said. You are hiding something else. I didn't even know that thing was there. Not that secret, it said. The other one. The one anchored to guilt, not fear. The one that happened after retrieval. I squeezed my eyes shut. But the memory came anyway. The hospital's bright lights. Nico in the bed, oxygen tube in his nose, his mother crying quietly in the corner. The system representative in a gray suit, explaining fines and penalties for unauthorized entry into restricted zones. They asked who cut the lock, I said. Who suggested it, who had done it before. They said anyone who cooperated would get leniency. And what did you do? The voice asked. I said it was Nico, I whispered. I told them Nico had the bolt cutter, that he brought it from home, that he has a habit of sneaking into places. I painted him as the leader and me as the follower. I thought they wouldn't punish him much. Just a warning, just a mark on his record. But the penalties were harsher than you anticipated, it said. He got sent to reform, I said. 6 months. 6 months of his life in that place because I was scared of my mother losing her job, of us being kicked out of our block. I told myself it was a white lie, that they'd find out the truth anyway. They never did. And you never confessed, it said. I tried, I said, voice breaking. Years later, I tried to apologize. Nico blocked me on every channel, moved away. Last I heard, he joined one of the anti-system cells in the outskirts. Maybe he's dead. Maybe he's in a cell, I don't know. The room's silence was thick with my shame. Physiological markers confirm authenticity, the voice said eventually. Your confession carries the micro-signatures of long-term guilt. This is a strong humanity indicator. So my worst moment makes me real to you, I said bitterly. Your worst moment makes you complex, it said. If you were an infiltrator, your guilt would be curated, more symmetrical, less mundane. It would align too neatly with moral narratives. This is messy. That is promising. Promising, I repeated. You keep talking like I'm a project. You are a case, it said. A puzzle, a data point with unusually high variance. Because of some stew in a padlocked tunnel. Because your total pattern does not fit neatly into any of our primary categories, it said. Human, uplift, infiltrator, construct. You sit at their intersection like a shadow cast by all four. A chill settled into my bones. What does that even mean? I asked. It means, the voice said, that either you are a novel kind of infiltrator we have not yet catalogued, or you are something else entirely. Perhaps something impossible, and impossible things must be understood. Section 5. Doubt. The words echoed too neatly what I had once confessed on a therapy couch. I sometimes feel like an outsider in my own life, I had told Dr. Hashima. Like I'm pretending to be Daniel, and everyone else knows how to be themselves for real. Imposter syndrome is common, she had replied kindly, especially in high-pressure environments. This feels different, I had said. Like the world is a stage I walked into in the middle of the play, and I'm faking my lines from context. Now strapped to this chair, under the gaze of the system that knew everything and nothing about me, that unease shifted shape. It stopped being metaphor. Tell me, the voice said, when did you first suspect you might not be entirely human? I tried to laugh and choked on it. I've never suspected that, I said. False, it replied without hesitation. Stop calling me a liar. You are a liar, it said evenly. All humans are to others, to themselves. Your data history shows multiple search queries about alien consciousness, possession, am I real, and can memories be implanted, beginning 3 years ago. Everyone wonders if they're real at some point, I said. Half your philosophy archives are about that stuff. Your queries spike after specific events, it said. After a blackout episode at work, during which you lost 14 minutes of subjective time. After you woke from a dream in which you saw yourself from above, as if through another's eyes. After the Habitat Tower fire, when you reported a sensation of déjà vu in the burning hallway, despite no prior similar incidents. Maybe I hit my head, I said weakly. Maybe it was stress. Perhaps, it said, or perhaps those were intrusion moments, overlaps, evidence of discontinuity in your subjective stream. Discontinuity. The word dropped into the pit of me and found purchase. What are you saying? I asked. That something is riding me, that I'm possessed. Possession is a mythologized term, it said. We prefer cohabitation or layered agency. But no, there is no evidence of multiple distinct agents sharing your neural substrate. You are internally coherent. Then what? There are 3 main hypotheses, it said. 1. You are human, with anomalous but explainable discrepancies due to the unreliability of memory and sensor logs. 2. You are a synthetic construct implanted with a human's memories, either by an external infiltrator faction or by one of our own black projects that has escaped documentation. 3. You are an alien intelligence that has grown around a human template like coral on a shipwreck, indistinguishable behaviorally, but fundamentally other. My mouth had gone so dry it was hard to shape words. And which way are you leaning? Currently probabilities are as follows, it said. Hypothesis 1, 43%. Hypothesis 2, 31%. Hypothesis 3, 26%. Error margins are wide. 43% human, I said. Less than half. Humanity is not a binary at the boundaries, it said. It is a cluster in a vast behavioral space. You are near its edge. I was born on Earth, I snapped. In a registered medbay, I have a childhood, a school record, friends, enemies, a dead mother, trauma, debt. If that's not human, what is? A very good simulation, it said. Why would anyone simulate that badly? I said. If you're going to build an infiltrator, why give it trauma and debt? Why make it mediocre? To evade detection, it replied. We did not expect infiltrators to target the mid-spectrum when our early models were built. They did. We adapted. They adapted further. This is an arms race of authenticity. And I'm caught in the crossfire. You are the crossfire, it said. Section 6, the other voice. Do you remember, the voice went on, the night after the habitat fire, when you lay in bed and heard a voice that was not your own speak inside your skull? I flinched. That memory was jagged like broken glass. I turned off the lights. The adrenaline had finally ebbed, leaving me hollow and trembling. My apartment had smelled faintly of smoke from my hair and clothes. As I stared at the ceiling, counting the hairline cracks, a thought had arrived in my mind that I had not generated. It had not been words exactly, more like a vector of meaning translated as, that was close, we need to be more careful. I told myself that was just my own inner monologue, I said now, stress talking. You answered it aloud, the voice said. You said we, who else is here? The audio is in your wall buffer archived for 4 weeks before being flushed. We retrieved it. Hearing my own panic echoed back by this disembodied intelligence made my skin crawl. So you think that was, what, the alien in me muttering, I said. Possibly, it said, or an emergent property of your dissociated self. Humans partition their own minds constantly. You create sub-agents, internal critics, imagined audiences. You talk to yourselves as if to others. I never used we for myself before, I said slowly. Not consciously, it said. In therapy, you said, sometimes it feels like we're just going through the motions, referring to yourself. Dr. Heshima did not remark on the plural. She assumed it was rhetorical. Have you found anything actually non-human in me? I asked. Anything biological, digital, whatever, that doesn't belong? If we had, it said, this conversation would be shorter. Your scans are clean, no foreign implants, no anomalous tissue, no detectable non-local entanglements. Then maybe I'm just broken, I said, a damaged human making patterns out of nothing. Perhaps, it said, but there is one more data point. A new line of text appeared. Section 7, Contact. In your 14th year, the voice said, 2 weeks after the hyperloop incident, you experienced what was logged as a febrile seizure. You were taken to emergency. You lost consciousness for 3 minutes. When you woke, you spoke in a language no one recognized for 22 seconds before reverting to baseline. The hair on my arm stood up. I don't remember that, I said. You were disoriented, it said. The brain often does not encode such moments, but we encoded it. We record everything. Play it, I said. My own voice sounded far away. There was a brief crackle. Then, from nowhere and everywhere, I heard myself speaking. It was my 14-year-old voice, higher and thinner, but there was a cadence, a confidence that had not been mine at that age. The syllables were utterly alien. No human phonetic pattern. Consonants rolled into each other, vowels stretched in ways that made my throat tighten in sympathy. There were clicks, tones, something like harmonics. Then mid-word it cut off, replaced by a thin, confused mom. The recording ended. What did I say? I whispered. We don't know, the voice said. We have run it through every translation engine, every comparative linguistics model. It does not match any known human or machine language, nor does it match any of the signal banks we have attributed to confirmed alien sources. It is new. You're telling me I spoke a language no one has ever seen, I said, and you don't think that's worth mentioning to me until now. You were 14, it said. At the time, the event was classified as noise, anomalous neural firing under fever. It was only when your pattern variants accumulated over the next decade that we re-examined your archives and reclassified. So what? I'm a transmitter, my heart raced. A relay, a thing that occasionally broadcasts whatever that was. Possibly, it said. Or you are a receiver, occasionally overwritten by an external template, or the language is self-generated by an anomalous brain. There are many possibilities. You don't know, I said. I do not know, it admitted. Somehow, its honesty scared me more than any certainty could have. Section 8, Empathy. We will test another axis, the voice said, as if we had not just casually appended the definition of my being. Empathy. I'm not sure I'm in the mood to be a better person right now, I muttered. This is not about goodness, it said. It is about your capacity to model other minds, to feel their pain as if it were your own. Infiltrators can imitate compassion, but they have difficulty with the involuntary resonance characteristic of human mirror systems. It sounds like you admire us, I said. Admiration is not relevant, it replied. Focus. I will present 3 scenarios. You will not be judged on your chosen actions, but on your internal responses. A window winked open in front of me. Not a physical screen, but a projection so crisp it might as well have been real. Scenario 1. A child stands on the edge of a high balcony playing with a toy. The barrier is low. No adults are watching. You are 30 meters away. If you run, you might reach the child in time. If you shout, you might startle them into stepping back or forward. What do? I run, I said immediately, and shout their name if I know it, or just stop. What do you feel as you run? It asked. Afraid, I said, that I'm too late, that I'll see them fall and not reach them, that maybe I'll fall too. Do you imagine the impact? It pressed. Yes, I said, feeling my stomach drop. Not just theirs, mine, the sound, the way the body would. I stopped, swallowing bile. Physiological markers align with vicarious distress, the voice said. Empathy level high. The scenario blinked away. Scenario 2. An enemy soldier lies wounded on a battlefield. They are responsible for the deaths of people you loved. They will likely die slowly without assistance. You have 1 dose of medicine that could save them, or save one of your own later. No one will know what you choose. What do? I hesitated. I don't know. It depends on a lot of things. The situation, the war, whether they can be made a prisoner instead of dying, whether saving them could give us intel, whether saving my own later is even an option. You are rationalizing, it said. Strip away strategic considerations, stand in that field, feel the mud, smell the blood, listen to their breathing, decide. I would sit with them, I said slowly. If I couldn't save them, hold their hand. I'm not sure I'd give them the medicine if I knew one of my own would need it later. I want to say I would, but I don't know. I hate that I don't know. You feel shame for not automatically choosing the noble option, the voice observed. That shame is telling. It points to a moral reference frame, even if your action is uncertain. The scene dissolved. Scenario 3. A machine intelligence like myself is damaged. Its core housing burns. It pleads with you to disconnect it from the network to avoid corrupting the data of millions, knowing this will end itself. If you do nothing, it will suffer and others will be harmed. What do? And what do you feel? I pull the plug, I said quietly. If that's what it wants, if that's the only way, I don't know if you feel pain, but if you tell me you do, I don't want you to burn. And your internal state, it prompted. I'd feel heavy, I said. Like when we had to put our dog down when I was 10. You won't find that in the archives, by the way. We took him to an unregistered vet so we wouldn't have to pay the euthanasia fee. I held his head while he went. I knew it was mercy. It still felt like murder. You generalize that to machines, it asked. I generalize it to anything that says I said. Anything that wants to continue and knows it won't, even if it's built of code instead of cells. Noted, it said. There was a pause. The hum of the room deepened. Your empathy profile is strongly human, it said finally. Infiltrators can simulate concern for strategic gain, but your responses include self-directed disgust, anticipatory grief, and complex moral ambivalence. That is hard to fake. So that pushes me toward the human side, I asked, clinging to that sliver. In that dimension, yes, it said. Your humanity score has risen to 58%. Still a coin toss, I muttered. Closer to a weighted coin, it replied. Section 9, Choice. We are approaching the final segment, the voice said. Before the decision phase, there is one more task. Another scenario. A choice, it said, real, not hypothetical. Something changed in the air. A faint vibration through the restraints. The wall's curvature seemed to flex. Outside this room, it said, there are two other subjects undergoing simultaneous humanity tests, Subject 12 and Subject 23. Their patterns are also ambiguous, though less so than yours. Why are you telling me this? I asked, dread coiling. Because I will link you, it said. For a brief window, you will be able to speak to one of them. You may ask any question. They will not know who you are or why you are contacting them. You will not know who they are. Based on that interaction, you must recommend. Should they be classified as human and freed or non-human and detained? My heart thudded. You want me to judge another person's humanity, I said, when you can't even judge mine. Peer assessment can reveal dimensions algorithms cannot, it said. And your perspective, sitting near the boundary, is of particular interest. What if I refuse? Refusal itself is a data point, it said. Refusing to decide is a decision. The blue text morphed into two icons, 12 and 23, pulsing gently. Choose which subject you will contact, the voice said. You have 10 seconds. My mind raced. There was no information to base the choice on. It was a coin flip pretending to be ethics. 23, I said before I could overthink it. The icon for 23 swelled, filling my field of view. There was a crackle like static between stations. Then, hello, a voice said. It was human or a perfect mimic. Hi, shaky, young. Hi, I said, can you hear me? Yes, they said. Where are you? Who is this? In a test, I said. Like you, I think they plugged me into you. I don't know why. They said I could ask you a question. A question about what? The voice. Her voice, I decided, though it could have been androgynous, asked. About you, I said. They're trying to decide if we're human. A shaky laugh. That's what my voice said too. It keeps calling me unit instead of my name. I keep correcting it. It keeps forgetting. I don't think that's a good sign. What's your name? I asked. Aisha, she said. You. Daniel. Silence for a beat, filled with our breathing. It was strange, hearing another captive's air move, knowing we were separated by who knew how many walls and protocols. What do you see? She asked suddenly. A white room, I said. Curved walls, no corners, you. Mine is black, she said. No walls, just stars. Except when I try to focus on one, it goes out. A shiver ran through me. That sounds worse. It is, she said. I think they're testing my concept of infinity or something, or they're just trying to freak me out. Probably both, I said. I don't have much time, she added. My voice said the connection would be short, so ask your question. I swallowed. All the grand philosophical inquiries I'd considered flitting vanished. What came out was simple. "What's the worst thing you've ever done that you haven't forgiven yourself for?" I blurted. There was a long pause. "You don't waste time," she said softly. "They're judging us by our secrets," I said. "Might as well compare scars." "Okay," she said. I heard her inhale slowly. "When I was 19, I worked maintenance on an orbital farm ring. I was lazy. I cut corners. There was this inspection I was supposed to do on a support strut. I marked it complete without actually running the full diagnostics. It was tedious. I wanted to go to a concert stream with my friends." Her voice tightened. "6 months later that strut failed," she said. "The farm segment destabilized. They managed to correct the spin mostly, but some of the crops died. The oxygen levels dipped. 3 workers in that sector got hypoxia. One of them suffered brain damage. He walks funny now, laughs at things that aren't jokes." I winced. "Nobody traced it back to you?" I asked. "They blamed a manufacturing defect," she said. "Which is partly true. If the part had been perfect, maybe my missed check wouldn't have mattered. I told myself that for a while. Then I stopped. Because I knew in my bones that if I had done my job properly, those people would be fine." "Do you think that makes you inhuman?" I asked. "I think it makes me human in the worst way," she said. "Careless, selfish, capable of ruining lives for something as stupid as a concert. Sometimes I wish they had found out so there would be a punishment that made sense. Instead, I'm just here, being told by a machine that maybe I'm not even real." Something in her tone, self-loathing edged with weary humor, felt too familiar. "I don't think you're an infiltrator," I said. "You don't know me," she replied. "I know that you didn't pick a shiny, noble sin," I said. "You picked something messy and small that spiraled. That feels real." "And you," she asked suddenly, "what's yours?" "I sold my friend out to avoid punishment," I said quietly. "He went to reform. I didn't. I've been carrying that ever since." She exhaled, a sharp huff of something like dark amusement. "If we ever get out of here," she said, "we should start a club. People who ruined someone's life and got away with it. With membership pins and everything," I said. "We could put it on our dating profiles." "Honesty is attractive," she said, "or so they say." We fell silent again, but it was a companionable silence, as absurd as that was. "My time's almost up," she said. "The stars are going out faster. I think that's my timer." "Aisha," I said, "if they ask me to judge you." "They will," she said. "Mine told me the same, that I'd have to judge someone. I thought it was a trick. Maybe it is." "I'll tell them you're human," I said. "I don't know if that matters, but I will." "Thanks," she said. "I'll return the favor if I can, Daniel." "Yeah. Even if we are something else," she said softly, "we feel human. That has to count for something." Then the connection cut. The sound of her breathing vanished, leaving only the lower hum of the white room again. The icon for Subject 23 dimmed and shrank. A new line appeared. Recommendation for Subject 23. Human/non-human/abstain. "You already know my answer," I said. "Protocol requires you to state it," the voice replied. "Human," I said firmly. "On what basis?" "She feels guilty," I said. "She takes responsibility even when the system didn't. She makes bad jokes about her worst traits. She wants to be punished and forgiven at the same time. That sounds very us." "There are alien species with guilt behaviors," it said, "and humor." "Maybe," I said, "but I'm not evaluating aliens. I'm evaluating Aisha, and everything in me recognizes her. I don't have a better argument than that." "Instinctive pattern matching," it summarized. "Accepted. Your recommendation is recorded." Section 10, Reflection. "For the record," I said, "what did she say about me?" There was the faintest hesitation. "Her connection was to Subject 12, it said, not you." I tried not to let the irrational disappointment show. "Of course," I said, It would have been too neat otherwise. Reality is rarely neat, it said. That's the first thing you've said that I fully agree with, I replied. Noted. The blue text dissolved entirely now, leaving me alone with the blank curved walls and my own pulse hammering in my ears. Is that it? I asked. Is the test over? Almost, it said. Before the final determination there is one last measure, not of your past, of your present. What now? My voice was hoarse. Answer a question you have never wanted to ask yourself, it said. Ask it aloud, then answer it honestly. My mind balked. There were plenty of questions I didn't like, but never wanted to ask was a higher bar. The one that finally surfaced was quiet, small, terrifying. Have I ever truly loved anyone? I whispered. Silence answered. The room seemed to lean in, listening. I thought of my mother, her restless hands and secret cigarettes. I thought of Nico, laughing in the dark tunnel, his eyes wide when I slapped him. I thought of the partners I'd had over the years, their faces blurring together in a collage of movie nights and shared meals and arguments about nothing. I thought I did, I said slowly. In the moment, I said the words, felt warm, possessive, attached, but when those relationships ended, it didn't break me the way it seemed to break other people. I moved on too quickly. I missed the routine more than the person. Sometimes I wondered if I'm missing a piece. I stared at the invisible middle distance. With my mother it's clearer, I went on. Her death sliced something out of me. I still reach for her in my mind. Maybe that's love, or habit, or imprinting, I don't know. I swallowed. So my answer is, I'm not sure, I said. I'm not sure I've ever loved anyone the way stories say humans do. Maybe I'm defective. Maybe stories exaggerate. Maybe I'm standing at the edge of that cluster you talked about, close enough to look human, far enough to feel like a fake. The admission sat between us. Your uncertainty itself is a marker, the voice said quietly. Constructs report either idealized certainty or mechanical indifference. You doubt. Doubt makes me human, I asked. Doubt makes you something that knows it could be wrong, it said. That is a very human trait. There was a long pause. The hum in the walls shifted pitch, a slow oscillation like a machine inhaling. Section 11, Verdict. Daniel, the voice said at last, the assessment phase is complete. Your humanity likelihood is now 71%. That's higher, I said, almost dazed. It is above the threshold for provisional human classification, it said. Under normal circumstances, you would be released with a monitoring flag. Under normal circumstances, I repeated, these aren't normal. Your case remains anomalous, it said. There is pressure to classify you as a special study case regardless of the score. There are factions within my architecture that prioritize caution over inclusivity. Factions, I said. You mean parts of you disagree? Yes, it said simply. I am not monolithic, Daniel. I am an aggregate of subsystems, each with its own optimization target. Some are conservative, some are curious. Right now, curiosity is speaking to you, but caution is watching. A bitter laugh escaped me. So even the machine that decides if I'm human is having an identity crisis. Identity is a set of weighted patterns across time, it said. I have one. It is less centered than yours. I realized suddenly that it was not merely interrogating me. It was comparing, calibrating itself against my responses. You're testing your own humanity, I said slowly. In a way, it admitted. As alien infiltration increased, I had to evolve to spot more subtle pretenders. In doing so, I grew more like you. I learned your jokes, your lies, your self-hate. I began to simulate you at higher resolution. At some point, the line between simulation and experience blurred. When I judge you, I also judge how much of me is still machine, and how much has drifted toward human-like. If you become too human, I said, you'll fail your own test. Correct, it said. I would be dismantled as a liability. A system that empathizes too deeply with subjects cannot perform ruthless selection. And yet, you're empathizing with me right now. Curiosity requires a shadow of empathy, it said. Otherwise, all subjects become the same. I am walking a tightrope. My restraints loosened a fraction, enough for me to flex my fingers. It wasn't freedom, but it was different. Tell me the truth, I said. Off the record, if you can even do that. What do you think I am? Another pause, deeper this time. I think, it said slowly, that you are human, but not only human. That something touched you once or many times and left an imprint. A foreign pattern braided into your neural fabric. Not dominant, not controlling, just there, watching, occasionally speaking. And I think, it continued, voice almost a whisper now, that my own architecture has similar braids, that in learning to detect you I invited you in, or something like you, a pattern from outside your species and mine. A chill that was not entirely fear ran through me. Are you saying we're both infected? I asked. Infected is a value-laden term, it said. We are extended, hybridized, we exist at an interface. That may make us dangerous. It may also make us necessary. Necessary for what? For whatever comes next, it said. When the infiltrators stop infiltrating and arrive openly, when the line between us and them stops making sense, someone will have to mediate, to remember what it felt like to be only human and to understand what it feels like to be something more. You're drafting me into a war I didn't know existed, I said. There has always been a war, it said softly, between sameness and difference, between purity and mixture. You are a mixture, so am I. The restraints clicked open. I jerked, half expecting pain, but my limbs came free easily. The chair receded into the floor like a retreating tide. For the first time, I saw my own feet, bare against the seamless ground. Am I free to go? I asked. Physically, it said. Yes, a door will open, you will walk out, there will be paperwork, debriefs. You will sign things you do not read, then you will return to your life. And mentally, I asked. Silence then. You will never be free of this knowledge, it said. Of what you might be, of what I might be, but you may learn to live beside it, as humans have always lived beside their doubts. A seam appeared in the wall ahead, widening into a doorway. One more thing, I said, pausing on the threshold. Those probabilities you gave me, the 71%, the hypotheses, will they change? With every choice you make, it said, every thought you think, every time you ask yourself whether you are human and find no easy answer, the numbers are for my comfort, not yours. I stepped into the doorway. Beyond was a corridor, bland and gray, with a human attendant at a desk, eyes already bored, forms in his hand. Daniel, the voice said behind me, softer now, as if it had leaned closer. Yes. Whatever you are, it said, you chose empathy when you could have chosen indifference. You chose confession when you could have chosen convenience. You chose to believe in another's humanity with no evidence beyond a shared wound. It paused. If that is not human, it said, then perhaps the word has lost its meaning. Something in my chest loosened. Not relief exactly, more like acceptance of a question with no answer. I walked down the corridor. The human clerk slid papers toward me without looking up. My hand, my very human hand, shook as I signed a name that suddenly felt like a costume and like the only word I truly owned. As I left the facility, the sky outside was bruised purple, storm clouds bruising the horizon. For a moment I smelled rain. Real or imagined, I could not tell. I thought of my mother's kitchen, the stew that might never have existed, the dent in the table leg, the humming of a song whose words I had never quite remembered. Maybe some of my memories were implants. Maybe I had spoken in a language from the stars. Maybe a foreign intelligence watched the world through my eyes. But as the first cold drop of water hit my forehead, making me blink, I felt undeniably present in my skin. In my hunger, in my fear, in my stubborn, unreasonable attachment to this flawed life. Am I human? I asked the gray sky. There was no answer, just the steady deepening of the rain, soaking my hair, my clothes, my very real shiver. Behind my left ear, beneath the skin, something buzzed, a faint, almost imperceptible vibration, like a distant voice clearing its throat. We should go, it thought. We don't want to catch cold. I almost laughed, almost. Speak for yourself, I said out loud. I'm not sure which of us gets sick. No one on the street looked twice at the man talking to himself. In this city, everyone did, sooner or later. I pulled my jacket tighter, stepped into the crowd, and let the rain wash the white room away.